Now, every day, hundreds of millions of searches are carried out on Chinese language web search engines. And to give you an idea of the hottest words and phrases being looked for here on China Take, we choose a selection of the most popular of those searches to give you an idea of what's trending amongst Chinese net users. First, on Baidu.com, we have this phrase: BMW driver gets 2 years for dragging cop. The driver in the news here is Liu Yuhong, the owner of a BMW Z4, who didn't exactly drag a traffic cop, but did take him for an unexpected ride in her fancy vehicle. According to the Yangcheng Evening News, Liu was ordered to stop by Yang Huanzhang, a traffic police officer in Zhengzhou, capital of Henan province. Now, Yang claimed that Liu had run a red light and was also driving without license plates on her car. Ignoring the officer's order to get out, Liu simply sped away. Unfortunately, Officer Yang sped away with her, carried on the hood of her car. Luckily, Yang managed to hang on for the next mile or so until Liu was forced to stop by other cars on the street. The 39-year-old driver, who's been given the nickname BMW Woman on the internet, later apologised for what she'd done. However, she defended herself, to some extent at least, by saying that she was in a bad mood after learning that her mother had contracted a sudden illness. That hasn't saved her from fierce online criticism, and in fact many complained that her sentence of 2 years in jail, suspended for 3 years, was far too lenient. Next, we move to Weibo.com for boot building. Well, as it suggests, this search concerns a building that, well, it looks like a boot. The building in Shanghai is actually designed as a high-end shopping mall for luxury brands. It joins a number of other unconventionally styled landmark buildings in Chinese cities, both loved and hated, it seems, in equal measures by the residents. Probably the most famous, or notorious, depending on your taste, being the new China Central Television headquarters in Beijing, which has long been nicknamed the Big Underpants by Beijingers. Meanwhile, this 1,000-foot Gate of the Orient, which is in Suzhou, is more commonly known as the Long Johns by locals there. And with the latest edition, the boot in Shanghai, net users are joking that now there's a complete set of clothing below the waist, and they're looking for more buildings to represent the top garments. So look out for the shirt, the jacket, maybe a hat to appear immortalised in future contemporary architecture in China. And finally, onto Sina.com, and this phrase: Beckham China Tour is being eagerly checked out by soccer and David Beckham fans. Well, Beckham actually arrived in China last Tuesday as part of a deal to act as a football ambassador for China and encourage young players to take up the game. His arrival comes as the country desperately tries to clean up its football image after a spate of corruption scandals, which has seen players, referees and officials sentenced to prison. But when asked by a BBC reporter if he'd be addressing the less savoury aspects of football in China, the former England captain said, "I'm not here to clean up anything. I'm here to educate the children and give them a chance to become professional footballers." Beckham, who was linked with a move to play in the Chinese Super League after leaving the Los Angeles Galaxy in December, also said he hasn't ruled out playing professionally in China someday. One part of the press conference that sparked a lot of comment online was when the MC, Zhang Bin, who's a sports commentator on state television here in China, said, "That's a good question by this reporter from the BBC. We should learn from the BBC and solve our match-fixing problems in the way the BBC solved its recent scandals." Well, that's it for our look at some of the top searches taking place in China today. You're watching China Take. Coming up next are Chinese bloggers' suggestions for white-collar workers with no time for their spouses.